At 21 years old, a brilliant young student was told he had only a few years left to live. He hadn't even finished his degree yet. He had barely started his career. And suddenly, doctors were telling him his body was already shutting down. He lived for more than 50 years after that diagnosis, and went on to reshape how humanity understands the universe itself. His name was Stephen Hawking. Born in Oxford, England in 1942. As a student, he wasn't particularly disciplined. He found his coursework easy, almost boring. By his own admission, life simply hadn't felt like it required much effort yet. That changed during his graduate studies at Cambridge. He began falling for no clear reason. His speech grew slightly slurred. His coordination, once unremarkable, started failing him in small, unsettling ways. After a series of tests, doctors delivered a diagnosis: amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, a disease that slowly destroys the nerves controlling the body's muscles. They told him he likely had only 2 years left to live. For a while he fell into despair. What was the point of starting a career, a family, anything at all, if the end was already this close? But something shifted in him. Rather than waiting quietly for his body to fail, he decided to use whatever time he had left as fully as possible. He poured himself into his research with an intensity he'd never had before. He later admitted that the diagnosis, as devastating as it was, gave his life a sense of urgency it had never had. Suddenly, every idea mattered. Every day counted. Around the same time, he fell in love with a young woman named Jane Wilde. She knew about his diagnosis. She chose to stay anyway. Having someone to live for gave him another reason to keep pushing forward. Against the doctor's expectations, Hawking completed his PhD. The disease was progressing, but far slower than anyone had predicted. His research turned towards something almost no one fully understood yet: black holes, regions of space where gravity was so powerful that nothing, not even light, was thought to escape. In 1974, he proposed something that shocked the scientific world. Black holes weren't entirely silent prisons after all. They emitted a faint radiation, and over enormous timescales, could eventually evaporate entirely. This idea became known as Hawking radiation. It connected two of physics' biggest theories, gravity and quantum mechanics, in a way no one had managed before. As his discoveries grew larger, his body continued to fail him. By the late 1960s, he needed a wheelchair full-time. He resisted accepting help for as long as he could. Eventually, he had no choice but to rely on it completely. In 1985, a severe case of pneumonia nearly killed him. Doctors performed an emergency tracheotomy to save his life. The surgery worked, but it cost him his voice entirely. He would never speak with his own mouth again. He adapted. A specially designed computer system let him select words using small movements in his cheek. A voice synthesizer spoke the words aloud for him. That distinctive robotic voice would become instantly recognizable to millions of people around the world. In 1988, he published a book meant to explain the universe to ordinary readers, A Brief History of Time. It became an enormous bestseller, staying on the charts for years, introducing complex cosmology to people who had never studied physics in their lives. Despite being almost completely paralyzed, Hawking refused to stop living fully. He once even experienced weightlessness aboard a special aircraft, floating freely for the first time in decades. He continued researching, writing, and teaching for decades beyond what any doctor had predicted. He held the same prestigious professorship at Cambridge once held by Isaac Newton himself. Stephen Hawking died in 2018, at the age of 76. More than 50 years after being told he had only 2 years left. He spent every one of those extra decades doing exactly what he'd been told he might never get the chance to do. He didn't just study the universe from a distance. He spent his entire borrowed time trying to understand it completely.